So I've already had a pretty interesting week so far. I've made kind of a big decision, and I'm going to kind of talk about that as talking about today's topic that I want to discuss. So this is probably one of the shortest intros I've ever done, but welcome to this week's episode of Divergence and Divine. My name is WIllspiration, and I want to talk about goals and, having patience and keeping an open mind about things that you want to do. So I made the decision Monday to start writing a book. So originally, a couple years ago, well, almost 2 years ago, I decided I wanted to write a self-help book for people that are on the spectrum and that have ADHD or have both. And I didn't really know how to go about doing it, because it turns out that when you have to write in reality, it's a lot harder than it looks. So I was struggling a lot to, write it in a way that still felt like a self-help book, but didn't quite feel like a novel. And then ultimately I ended up deciding not to go through with writing the book. And then I just kind of sat there and decided, well, do I want to still write it, or do I want to find another way to convey that way to help others? And eventually I settled on this podcast as a way to do what I could, and which was writing the self-help book. But Monday I decided to write an actual book, like a fantasy novel. And this is kind of where I talk a little bit more about how goals, having goals works, and never giving up on, what you want to do. And the first goal that I don't think I've ever given up on, that was kind of a big goal, was the Reiki. Becoming a Reiki master teacher was probably the first biggest goal I ever achieved, and I'm really proud of that. My second goal was starting this podcast, and this is episode 19, so I think I'm doing pretty good for myself. Even if it's not getting a lot of views right now, I'm sure there's probably people from a couple years from now that are probably watching and are probably very grateful to hear about, my story and how I could be an inspiration to other neurodivergent people, and that means a lot to me. So welcome if you're from the future watching this, whether it be 2 days from now or 5 years from now, whether I'm still going strong in 5 years with this podcast, or if it only goes for a couple years, I don't know, but I guess we'll see, right? So now my third goal is to write this novel that I wanted to. And we're going to also talk about a little bit of healing in this as well, because the basis and the concept of my novel kind of actually stemmed from a very, very poor coping skill. So back in June of 23, I started playing an MMORPG called Phantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis. And I made a male character and a female character. The male character is obviously me, literally. I made it look as close to me as possible. And then the other one was actually based on and made to look similar to the lady that was pretty much hurt me at my last job. And it was a poor choice of coping skills, like I said earlier, because it's basically using that as a way to project the fact that I still couldn't believe that she turned out to be such a terrible person, and I wasn't ready to let go of that yet. But about a year ago, after being in my alliance for a little over a year, a couple of the alliance members actually wrote lores for their characters. So I thought, you know what? I'm feeling kind of creative. I want to write a lore of my own for this character. So I did. I wrote a lore for the characters. I even wrote myself a little lore for my character, how I ended up on the world of Halpha and everything. But obviously my lore is not super impressive because it's literally just me. One day I just got sucked up into a wormhole and poof, there I am on the world of Halpha. So it's like, well, that's not really interesting. But the female character, I literally spent like 3 hours writing lore for that character. And ever since then, within the last year, I've just made minor updates to the point where I've made updates to the lore story. I've made updates to the lore behind some of the outfits that I have for the character that I made in game using the in game assets. So I kind of already have a little bit of a base to work with. So I decided that on Monday, I wanted to write a fantasy novel revolving around that character because she had gone from a projection of somebody that hurt me really bad, and I wanted to see the good in them, which was a poor choice of coping skills, like I've said like 3 times already, to being a unique character that like is my own creation. Obviously not in terms of like the model and all the assets. Obviously those are Sega owned, and the lore story obviously involves elements of Phantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis. So I have to do a little bit of tweaking in terms of anything involving the plot of Phantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis, but otherwise everything else, which is like 80% of the lore, I can actually use because it's my idea. So I already have a strong base, and then I decided that I'm gonna work myself into the story as a character to essentially be a parallel to the main protagonist, which will be the female character. So it's going to be a dual protagonist of the female character that I made and myself, and then they're going to basically mirror each other. So the concept right now is that they're going to be twins. They're going to be fraternal twins, and everything for the lore of the female character is going to stay the same, and she's going to be neurotypical. And then there's going to be a character based off of me that's going to be neurodivergent, but has like nothing extraordinary about them. Like they're just human. So I think it's going to be really interesting because I have a way of how I'm going to do this so that it bounces off with like the powers that the female character has from her lore, and then like parallel it to like me and my struggles as a neurodivergent person. And then from there, just kind of showing like recounting my growth alongside this character, and then having that character grow alongside the character inspired by me and paralleling them. And then from a spiritual aspect, it's also like a great way to, if anyone's like into like, metaphysics and spiritualism, it's a great way to show the difference of feminine energy and masculine energy, which everybody has. And then it's also a great way to show my growth, with my spiritual and metaphysical abilities, and show my growth as a neurodivergent person, and get to document both growths at the same time while keeping them as 2 individual characters, but then showing how those parallel and have helped me since, which I know I've mentioned many times in this podcast. So that's going to be really exciting. And then in the lore, I mentioned about how the female character used to live with her grandfather, and I decided to name the grandfather in the story after my grandpa on my dad's side, who also is the reason why my dad and I share the same middle name and why I'm also a junior. So that's going to be a nice little homage to my grandpa. So that's going to be kind of nice. But yeah, it's something that like I remember wanting to expand the lore so much. Like I was just so into it. I could have spent like 2 days writing like a short story, like a short little novel of like probably 50 pages. And I could have made like a little one-shot story. And I was just like, no, I don't want to get too carried away with it. So now doing this is going to be amazing. And I can't wait to see how it turns out. The way I'm pacing it, I want to keep the pacing good, and I want to keep it detailed, but I also want to keep it short. So my goal is to try to not exceed more than 300 pages for the story, because on average, typical fantasy novel chapters tend to be anywhere from 12 to like 20 pages. Older books from the past, like in like the 1900s, typically were like anywhere from like 22 to like 28 pages per chapter. So they were a lot bigger. But generally speaking, I want to try to keep this a little bit shorter. And I'm going to work on the pacing as I go. So hopefully it won't be too big. Essentially, this whole entire book is going to be like a paraphrased version of the lore. And then I'm going to leave it open-ended so that if it ends up being successful for whatever reason, it'll leave the door open for me to be able to pick a specific part in the person, like in my character's lives, to tackle in greater detail. Kind of like the way I'm doing is I'm kind of taking inspiration from like the East series, where like Adol Christian is like, he's an adventurer, and like every East game is just like a different adventure that he went on, and it's essentially like a narration of him recounting his adventure. So like my favorite game is East 8. So like playing through East 8 was like Adol recounting his adventures on this island that he got stranded on, and meeting this character named Dana. And I like how it was just written, because it's just like, oh, this is just another adventure in Adol's story. Like if you were to turn the games into like a novel series, it'd basically be like recounting bits and pieces of East 1 through 10. And then if that book did really good, then you could start going into the individual adventures. So that's kind of my idea right now. How I want to do it is just like a paraphrase, like give enough detail where you would be like satisfied if it were to be just one book, but also kind of make you curious for more. Like I want to know more details about this. Like, how did this go? How's the action? How are like day-to-day life, events, that kind of thing. And then I also decided that on the side, in between when I'm writing, I also want to practice my drawing skills and try to work on becoming at least an amateur level professional artist. Or I guess not professional. I can't say professional if I'm amateur, but become at least an amateur digital artist, so I can actually draw my own imagery for the characters and everything. Because again, the female character uses assets from Phantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis, and those are all Sega owned. So I basically just took some of the qualities that I've made using the character creation system, noted them down, and just trying to make a general similarity to the character model. And then obviously everything from there, like the clothing and minor facial differences, will be more noticeable, but it'll also be my own character, so it's not really straying too far from the original. But it just basically is a good way for me to kind of get an idea of how I want my character to look. And then as for the character that's based off of me, that's not really going to be that hard. It's basically literally just me, but it just won't be me at the same time. So the character is gonna, dress like me, be my height. I might actually give my character the beard sooner, because I always wanted a beard, but I wasn't able to finally technically allow my beard to grow until I was like, 30? Because I started at my new job when I was 30. And then all my other jobs, I had to be clean shaven. So I could never really grow out my beard. So I might just give the character based off of me the beard sooner, and just make some minor physical differences, so it's not like a 1-to-1 of me. But that way you guys can kind of at least see some of the growth that I've made, and in a more fantasy-like setting. And then like obviously here on the podcast, I kind of talk more about my growth like in reality, and some of the things that I've been through. So I think it's going to be a very amazing story, and I'm very excited to get working on it. And it's just, I feel like it's come full circle from a poor coping skill to being in the inspiration for writing a novel. And I don't know what sparked it in me, but I just thought, this would make a good book. And then I just decided to say, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to write it. I don't care. And I don't know. Sometimes I just get those like bursts of creativity, and I know there's going to be times where I'm just not going to be in the mood to write at all. And I'm going to be like, yeah, I don't feel like writing it. But on the days when I do feel like writing, I'm going to go hard on the writing. And I'm just going to probably sit here for like 12 hours on my computer chair, just writing nonstop. And then I'll go back towards the last couple hours of the day and just, proofread and see if there's anything I want to change, and just kind of check the flow of the story and make sure that it's got a nice smooth pacing to it. So I'm pretty excited. And obviously that's not going to stop me from recording the podcast. So this is still going to come out weekly, but I'm starting to get a lot more stuff going on, and I'm pretty excited for it. And I think this is a really good way to show how if you have goals that you should go and, pursue them, because I feel like when we're young, we're always told, oh yeah, you can be whatever you want to be. And then we're always like, I want to be I don't know. A lot of the common ones are like, I want to be a police officer. I want to be a firefighter. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a superhero. I want to be a sailor, because oftentimes, we as kids are introduced to a lot of fantasy elements, right? Because we have big imaginations. So then when we do become like teenagers and we're in high school, then we kind of are slowly starting to be, we are slowly being introduced to reality. And then we kind of quickly realize, some of these things are not as easy to obtain as we thought. Like, being a police officer is a lot harder than it actually is. And so is being a firefighter. So is, being having your own ship and sailing your own ship is also really hard too. And then you kind of start becoming more grounded in things that are more feasible. Like, I know for a while I wanted to be a game designer, and there are people that are like, oh, well, if that's the case, I want to be a teacher, or I want to be a physical therapist, or I want to be a psychiatrist, or I want to be a psychologist. And then when you get to college and you get through your gen ed classes, then all of a sudden you're kind of wondering, well, do I still want to do this, or do I want to do something else? Because there might be something else that piques your interest. And then all of a sudden you're kind of like, well, now I don't know what to go for. And it's fine and all. I mean, unfortunately, in today's society, you need a piece of paper that says that you can do something, which I think is completely stupid. Because, for example, at my work, they just hired a new supervisor, and she's straight out of grad school. Like, she's only 24 and has absolutely no idea how our company is ran. And she's basically bossing people around, telling them what to do, writing people up. And it's just like, that's not how this job operates. Like, you literally just came in and just ruined the flow of everything. And that it's basically things like that make me go, see, this is why sometimes I hate college, because I feel like it gives people the impression that, oh, I got a piece of paper and I went to school for 4 to 6 years, so obviously I'm smarter than you. And it's like, the problem is that you also have to be grounded in reality. And the problem is when you work with people that have been in the workforce way longer than you have, whether they went to college or not, it doesn't matter. They're gonna put the hard truth on you that, hey, you can't just come in here and boss people around just because you're a supervisor when you've never worked this kind of job before. Like, you need experience. And honestly, if it were me and I wanted to be a supervisor, I would have just came in as a line lead and, learned the stuff, like learned how to pack and learn how to run machines and kind of learn how the company runs and how the production floor runs, and then moved up. And then when I became a supervisor, now I have those supervisory skills on the piece of paper that says, hey, I'm more than qualified to be a plant manager if I wanted to be, but at least I know how the company runs. So to me, I feel like that's the biggest issue with college, is that people just automatically assume that just because you have a piece of paper that says, oh, I can do this, that you're automatically better than people that don't have a college degree. And to me, that's very wrong. So if any of you have college degrees, just remember that you're not, just because you have a piece of paper that says you can do something doesn't mean that you're any better than somebody that doesn't. Because that's like saying I have a trade certificate and I go, look at me, I can run wires through houses or buildings and you can't. So I'm better than you because if I wanted to, I could build my own house and do my own electrical and not have to pay anybody because I know how to do it. Okay. So what? So you can run your own, your own electric, big fucking whoop, right? It's basically the same thing with college. Oh, you have a piece of paper that says you can be a supervisor? What do you fucking do? I could start as a line lead and work my way up to supervisor and not need a piece of paper that says that I can do it. So you're not that special. And I feel like that's kind of the biggest thing is that in certain aspects, yes. I can understand with teaching. Teaching, I can understand needing a college degree because you have to understand the fundamentals of teaching. You have to understand how the mind of children and teenagers work so you can find the best way to teach them and get them to retain the information. But at the same time, I think we also forget that the biggest thing is that sometimes some people are just not cut out for things. There are some people that are in, managerial, spots and, that are leads, managers, supervisors, plant managers that genuinely just don't have what it takes, and how they even got to those positions is beyond me. I feel like everyone has some sort of calling, and you gotta figure out what that calling is. Whether that takes you until your 30s like me, or you can figure it out by the time you get out of high school, it doesn't really matter. You just can't, there's just some things that you can't do. Everyone tells me that I would make a great supervisor, that I would make a great team lead, that I make a good line lead. And it's just and for me, I sometimes doubt my own leadership skills because I don't feel like I could be an effective leader. But if people are genuinely trusting me and coming to me before the actual management for stuff, I feel like that's got to count for something, right? Obviously, I would have to have some sort of quality in me that just radiates leader if people are coming and asking me stuff. So I'm going to get my foot wet and I'm going to, try line lead as soon as I get the, interview. And if I get it, it'll be a nice way to see, can I handle being in management? If not, then I'm perfectly content being a line lead. But if I actually do like it and people do like working on a line with me that I'm in charge of, then you know what? Maybe I do have what it takes to be a leader. But I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I'm a great leader and, I barely have any leadership experience. So it's just a matter of, making sure that when you say something, it's not arrogant. That's why, again, I was saying that, people come to me and people tell me I make a great leader. I mean, do I think I would make a good leader? Maybe. I'm not going to say that I am, and I'm not going to say that I'm not. I'm going to say that I would have to try it out first and see how it goes before I can be like, you know what? I feel like I could be a good leader. Or, no, I don't think I'd be a good leader. Because I don't want to, hype myself up and then let myself down and let other people down. But at the same time, I also don't want to, put myself down and never take the chance to try it. And again, going back to goals, that's part of what setting goals is that you can't necessarily say that you're going to be good at something, but you can't say that you're going to be bad at it either. You have to try it out first. You have to try things in that realm and see, kind of test the waters and see if you can actually do it, because you don't want to put yourself down, but you don't also want to overhype yourself and then let yourself down because you thought you could do it and then you realize you can't. You just want to go in it with an open mind and be like, I'm inexperienced. I don't have a lot of knowledge in this, so I don't know where it's going to go. If it ends up working out, then great. If not, it's not really a big deal. I'll, just keep exploring. And that's, I feel, is a very helpful and healthy mindset to have, because then you're not really letting yourself down either way. And it gives you a good chance to kind of explore more things and get to learn more about yourself. And if there's one thing that I can say is that being neurodivergent is very hard. It essentially, how should I put this? Being neurodivergent really affects your self-esteem, especially when you get picked on and you get bullied and made fun of because you're different. But you can't really, the way I'm going to say this like this, you can't really let it affect you, because if you do, you're going to end up like me, and you're going to spend most of your teenage years and all of your 20s questioning your ability on if you can do anything right or anything at all, until you get to like your late 20s, early 30s and go, wow, I just wasted, all of my 20s questioning if I can do something. Like, here I am actually doing it. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I just want to help people like not end up in that spot where you just kind of keep questioning yourself and you miss your opportunity, and be like, man, if only I had more confidence back then. So I want to be that voice of confidence for all those neurodivergents listening that are wondering, man, I want to write a book, but I don't know if I should or not. Or I want to be a live streamer and I don't know if I should or not. Or I want to move up in my company and I don't know if I should or not. I want to be that voice for those people that feel like if they're questioning themselves, I want to be there to be able to tell you guys, give it a shot. Like, there's no harm in it. Just don't go in there with a big ego or zero confidence. That's what I struggled for a second how I want to explain that. But yeah, don't go in there with an overinflated ego or no confidence at all. Just go in there with an open mind and a level head and be like, hey, if it doesn't work out, no big deal. I can always try to find something else. And if it goes great, then that's amazing. Like, I found something that I can actually do that I might actually enjoy. And when you approach things like that, there's really no harm done, whether it works out or not. And having goals is always good, whether it's as simple as overcoming, a long time issue with a sensory issue, or anything that, you typically try to avoid because it's a little too much for your autism to handle, right? Like, it's too much for your brain to handle, or too much for you to handle, or it's a sensory issue, or whatever it may be. Like, any way to, like, you can find a work around it, use it to your advantage. Even just a small improvement of like, wow, this is the first time where I feel like I have, enough confidence to start, actually taking a shower and not like being afraid to do it because I don't like how water feels on my skin. Because I've used this example in the past where there are some autistic people that they don't like to bathe because they don't like the way water feels on their skin. Or like how soap feels on their skin. Like, it's like a sensory and texture issue, right? But if you can find some way to do that, it's not the end of the world. It's like, it's one step up. It may be the only step you take in your entire life, but hey, you know what? That still counts for something. And I feel like we also, as neurodivergents, forget to celebrate our small little achievements because we feel like baby steps don't mean anything when neurotypicals are typically leaps and bounds ahead of us. But really and truly, even those little baby steps for us mean a lot. And if somebody puts you down because of that, don't feel bad about it. Just ignore those people, which, I know is easier said than done. I have rejection sensitive dysphoria. So I know full well how hard it is to like when people say just let it go. Yeah, it's hard. But if you continue to work on it and you go to therapy and you find grounding techniques, it does become a bit easier to just let those things roll off your back. And then there's also just growing up and years of experience of dealing with it. You kind of learn to, develop a tougher skin so things roll off your back easier. But it's just, I don't know. I just want to see neurodivergent people like myself, shine and thrive in a world that's not made for us, and prove, hey, we can do something the same or even better than a neurotypical can. And that's, amazing. Like, just because our brains are wired differently and we have our own issues doesn't mean that we're any less than compared to a neurotypical. Just like there are some neurotypicals that are bad at things that other neurotypicals are amazing at, and everywhere in between. I don't feel like our neurodivergence should be the reason that we ourselves decide not to do something because we go, oh, I'm neurodivergent and I don't feel like I can do this. I'm always in the camp of, if there's anything that involves your sensory issues that you want to do that you're afraid you might not be able to do because of that, I still say give it a try. And if it doesn't work, hey, at least you know now, right? But what if there's that, even if you feel like it's impossible, what if there's that 1% chance that maybe, just maybe, it works out? Yeah, it's a slim chance, but I still say try it anyway. You never know. And I feel like that's the biggest thing. We always think that it's like a 1% chance that we'll ever succeed at something. So we just go, it's best to avoid it. But I still think we should still go for it anyway. Because the more we feel like, I can't, the more we're just missing out on opportunities to become something great. And then we'll sit there our whole lives and question, why our lives are like this. And it's just like, but if we would have just taken that leap instead of letting peer pressure and people putting us down and making fun of us keep us from trying to reach our dreams and trying to do the things that we thought we couldn't do and try to find something that we love that is our calling, then we just sit here and we just feel terrible about ourselves. And it's like, I don't want people to feel bad about themselves. I want people to feel like, that they can thrive and shine, even if they are neurodivergent. And I feel like a lot of that is because of the fact that I've seen how much growth that I've made. And I want to share that positivity and that, hope that any neurodivergent person can heal and grow and thrive and exceed the expectations of everyone, whether they're neurodivergent or neurotypical, and just prove, hey, it doesn't matter. We're all still human. And this is me. I am who I am, and I'm just living my best life, and I'm thriving, and I don't care if people are jealous of me. I don't care if people make fun of me, because at the end of the day, what I'm doing makes me happy, and that's all that matters. And that's what this podcast has been aiming to do, and that's what my novel that I'm going to be writing is, going to be geared towards, is being able to find a way to reach every neurodivergent person and show them it doesn't matter if you're a 40-year-old neurodivergent or if you're a high schooler neurodivergent, that you can still achieve something great in your life. No matter how young or how old you are, you still have time to achieve something great for yourself. Something that, will add something that makes you go, wow, I didn't think I could do this, but I really love doing this and it's amazing. So I hope that this gives you some hope that you'll be able to do something great someday. Whether you're a teenager, a young adult, in your 40s or 50s, or in your 30s like me, like this is just that message to say, hey, you can do it, and you just got to explore, and you got to learn more about yourself and know what your strengths and weaknesses are, and know how your autism and ADHD affects you, and learn how to what you can do to work around it, or maybe actually use that to your advantage, or whatever it takes to be able to achieve what you want to do. So I hope that this really resonates with all of you, and that it helps give you some encouragement and some hope that you can do what you want to do. But with that, I'm going to wrap up this week's episode. It's a little bit of a shorter episode, but I know the last couple of episodes have been a little bit longer, so I wanted to make this one just a little bit shorter. So as always, if you guys enjoyed this episode of the podcast, drop a like, hit the notification bell, because the notification bell will let you know when I upload new episodes of the podcast, and subscribe so that you don't miss out on any videos, and hit the like button and all that stuff. So I'm pretty sure I said one of those twice, but I'm not even gonna bother to edit it out. I'm just gonna leave it as is because I think that'll be funny. But yeah. So with all that, I will talk to you guys next week, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your week and a good weekend, and I will see you guys next Thursday. Bye bye.